So, Avihu, we last spoke in August, and a lot has changed since then, both for the cannabis market and for the business. The last few months have seen a lot of activity for the group, including a new formula launch, a new partnership with Medocan, and a new license for a Malta facility. So, just outlining some of these milestones, can you tell us about how Kanabo has really progressed since August?
Yeah, we had a very busy 3 months since then, I think. If we're looking on the R&D side, the company launched two new products into the market. One in the CBD line of vapes. It's a unique patent pending product that basically is the first time in the cannabis industry where you have vapes with no additives, with no carriers. So it's a pure hemp extract, very potent, and getting very positive feedback in the market. At the same time, we launched the first medical vape into somewhere in Europe, anywhere in Europe. The first market was the UK. And the adoption is overwhelming. And we see the feedback from patients, and it's always good because we're here to help patients. And when you're doing good, when you see the patients are literally saying it's changing their life, this is where we are here. And I'm expecting to have some testimonials, and you will see some information about the patients coming out and talking about this in the near future.
And just so we have a picture of how current patients use medicinal cannabis, can you just explain the existing methods and why this is significant?
So sadly, the only two options that cannabis patients have in UK and in Europe is to choose between flowers, and taking the flowers, majority of them just smoking it, or tinctures. And both of these methods are problematic. I don't need to explain too much about smoking. Smoking anything is not ideal. But on top of it, it's a big challenge for the medical community. They would never see smoking a flower as a medicinal route of administration. So they're always pushing for the tinctures, for the oils. And the challenge with the oils, and that's across the board, doesn't matter if it's kids that are receiving the oils or adults, is the uncertainty. When you're consuming something orally, it takes a lot of time. You don't know the onset time. You don't know the duration of effect that this material will have on you. And the bioavailability is usually very, very low. And in any drug, this is negative, but in a drug that is psychoactive, this is a problematic side effect. And you see a lot of patients are opting to smoking because they don't have these side effects of a bit like playing the roulette. And that's really the challenge. And that's why you see that suddenly when you have a device that is working via inhalation, so it's exactly what patients are looking for, but it's a medical device with a meter dose and a precise amount in every inhalation, that's something that gives a lot of comfort for physicians.
And of course, you'd expect with products like this to meet certain standards in terms of quality, safety, efficacy. How does the product reach these standards?
So all of our products are EU-GMP production based on preclinical trials. The device went through all the testings of medical device in Israel and soon medical device across Europe. So you have quite hefty, I would say, standards. It's good because it's the same standards as pharmaceutical medicine. The challenge is sometimes that innovation and bringing new products to market takes a bit more time. But that's the barrier to entry. And that's the positive part for us as a business.
Right. And of course, recently the MHRA brought in some updated guidance which might inform regulation. Can you talk about this updated guidance? How has it evolved and how do you think this will change things in the UK?
I think the step that the MHRA are taking is revolutionary. because what they're saying is we see electronic cigarettes, and that's a technology of vaporization, is not only preferred on smoking, we all know that, but they're taking it a step forward. They're saying we understand that this platform is the best, the number one way for smoking cessation. That's basically, by numbers, the solution for the smoking epidemic. And we all know how hard it is to stop smoking. And nicotine is one of the most addictive drugs out there. And many people, they don't know, but 48% addiction rate. So 1 out of 2 smokers that will start smoking will have a dependency. So by saying that, they're validating what many know already, that this is a great route to use, but taking it even to a higher notch by saying we approve these as a medical treatment, so you can get a prescription. That means that it's going to be regulated and really picking up now the good products, and supervision and regulation. That's always good.
So, if it does inform regulation, just so listeners understand, in practice, this means that England could become the first country in the world to allow prescription e-cigarettes. How will this affect your activity in the country? Why is this good news for you?
It's validating what we're doing. So that's always good. It means that we will have more adoption of vape technology in replacement of smoking. And I believe that we'll see this affecting vaping of CBD as replacement for many other over-the-counter treatments, and vaping of medical cannabis as a replacing to opiates, to some psychiatric medicines. Across the board, it's going to change many, many things.
And what do you think, what exists as a barrier between the updated guidance and actual regulation for now?
There's not a big barrier. I think that we'll see the adoption very quickly. We already see a few companies that opting in, and it's like a floodgate that is open. There's many companies that were waiting for something like this, and it's a good decision for the UK becoming a hub that will support alternative. If you're looking in the future, I would believe that this category of, let's call it vapor medicine, will be a real category. That first mover advantage are the ones that are companies that are startups are young, they're going in. We'll see a second wave and a third wave where we see real pharmaceutical companies understanding that there's some medicines that you can already use via inhalation and have a high bioavailability, have more certainty, fast onset. There's so many benefits.
And of course, cultures are already one of the fastest growing segments of the industry in North America. What can you say about this market? And do you think England will just follow this trajectory, really?
Yeah, so what we see in the US and Canada now as well is, again, that the only category of products that is succeeding to transit people from smoking to non-smoking products are vape cartridges. And the category grew so fast that now in some countries, in some states in the US, it's between 30 to 35% of all sales. And it dropped smoking of flowers in a recreational market, a market where you assume you will have more people smoking, under 50%. So in a medical market, I believe that this category will replace majority of flower sales.
And now, earlier this week, you announced that you have applied to undertake an efficacy trial in relation to inhalation formulas that can be used with VapePod. Can you touch on this news? What does this trial look like? How long is it, and why are you conducting it?
So because this category of vaporization in medical cannabis is so new and so revolutionary, believe it or not, there's almost no clinical trials that shows information around that. Right. Now, that means that right now physicians that see and getting anecdotal information from patients that this product is working and helping them, and they see the adoption, and we see the numbers coming from North America, but they don't have hard evidence data that base their clinical trials. The only thing they have is preclinical trial or electronic cigarette information that is different material. We will bring to the market for the first time bioavailability data, safety information, and efficacy and pain. Bioavailability means to show how superior this method compare both for oral consumption of cannabis, but in addition, smoking of cannabis.
And just to add some context to this product, is this initially targeting pain management? Can you explain a little bit about this?
Yeah. So the first product we already launched in the UK is for pain management. And the reason is that this is the biggest indication right now for medical cannabis. It replaces opiates and narcotics. And that's, I think that's an emergency state, and we need to have a replacement for these drugs. The second thing is that what we're going to see is more product in the side of psychiatric treatments, so post-trauma, anxiety, and that will be the second layer that we will look into. The third one is a product that we already developed and passed very successfully preclinical studies in insomnia and sleep disorder. It's amazing what these formulations of cannabis can do in assisting and helping, and again, replacing very addictive drugs of insomnia and assisting in helping.
And what will be an ideal outcome of the trial?
Showing the information that we already know, but doing it in a proper clinical way, showing the information that the onset time is extremely fast. We're talking about minutes before the drug hitting the bloodstream. Second of all, we want to show the safety of these products, even in a longer term, in a higher dose that patients are receiving. And efficacy data is always good to see the adoption rate. It's all information that we know already from patients that are using the product, but now we will have it through a controlled clinical trial.
And you've said that this trial can also support sales in both the UK and Germany. How exactly do you see this panning out? What will this mean for your activity across both of these markets?
So while we have no requirement today in the field of medical cannabis to show clinical trials, medical cannabis patients are just receiving plants and flowers and oils that never passed any clinical trials. We believe that in order to lead the industry, you should do these trials and bring this information for physicians. Because what will happen is very easy. In the end of the day, the recommendation, which product to use, is coming from the physician. Physicians are, we don't need to guess, they're asking, literally asking for clinical, for evidence-based information. Once they will have this in their hand, once they will be able to feel comfortable on prescribing these medicine, and they will know how much exactly to prescribe, they won't need to guess. This will give them much more comfort. It will give comfort for medical organizations that will go a step forward and say, okay, now we feel that we can adopt them. So if we're taking the NHS, for example, the NHS are not really prescribing, not really promoting. You have a nice private market that is growing very fast, but the NHS will feel comfortable when they will see this clinical data and will understand. And already supporting the move from vaporization. There's not a lot of difference what's happening when you're giving patients to smoke cannabis today, when you have an alternative of vaping it in a meter dose medical device, to what's happening with the decision around the electronic cigarette to promote this medicinally. So someone can see the connection.
Okay. Of course. Now, also, I want to talk about your proposed acquisition of Materia. I know you've had a lot of news out over the last few months, including a new license facility in Malta. And last month, you told investors that you'd finished some due diligence work as part of the proposed acquisition. So can you just talk a little bit about this proposed acquisition? How is it progressing?
So Materia Malta is progressing extremely well. We announced, I believe, in September that the final approval from Maltese authority was given to the facility. And I believe that we will announce soon the first commercial sales from the facility in Malta. So Malta is already operational, as we announced, and soon commercial sales from the facility. So we're very happy. It was a long regulation challenge, and being one of a handful of companies, cannabis companies in Europe that can produce products in a EU GMP grade is rare. To be one that can do that in a country where you can import almost freely cannabis from around the world is almost non-existing. So that will be one of the main growth engines for Kanabo Materia next year.
And how will this, alongside any other recent developments or upcoming developments, how will this further enhance the acquisition for Kanabo?
So the acquisition, we did not sign yet the definitive agreement, but the companies are working together almost as one company. And I believe that we will see again soon the information about the definitive agreement.
And so beyond all these recent milestones and your efforts to collect more data and first commercial sales, which are upcoming, can you say anything about what else you hope to achieve in coming into the new year?
So I think that another interesting announcement we had is the agreement with Medocon, and that's coming together with our strategic investment in Hellenic Dynamic, another cultivators. We have decided from the beginning that we are not taking the risk of the agricultural cultivation risk. We saw that in many states, it's a bit of a run to the bottom. Those who invested in cultivation ended up looking where to sell the product. And what we're doing is picking up these extremely super premium, high quality cultivators that are already succeeding and growing very well in a certain market, and supporting them by developing together products that have specific indications, because we have a lot of information and data working with patients, and bringing the products into the European market, commercializing it, supporting the sales, and utilizing flowers into more advanced products like the vape and like others that we will bring to the market. And that gives us to sit in a part of the supply chain that makes sense, that you have the control over the patients, the brand, and in the end of the day, the ones that has higher margins as well.
And also just, in line with this, obviously a lot has changed for the group since August, but what has changed for cannabis in terms of the broader industry, would you say, that specifically in relation to everything you've just mentioned?
I think 99% of people in the industry will answer the same. That's the announcement of Germany. And once Germany decided that they will not only go to become the biggest medical market, now they're planning to be the biggest consumer market with adult use for cannabis. This basically triggered I will call it a domino effect of a race to build the cannabis programs in Europe. So everyone was talking about when we will see Europe catching up to North America. And now we have an answer. It's going to happen next year. And it doesn't matter even anymore if Germany will finish their program in 22 or 23, because it's a domino effect. Now, smaller states or countries in Europe that were sitting on the fence, weren't sure about that. They're getting a lot of legitimacy from this act. We see that the European Union changing their view now on cannabis. And the view on cannabis is affecting the view on CBD as well. So it's broadening the CBD market, broadening the medical market, and building a whole new market of adult use for medical cannabis. And so if we had the beginning, I would call it the three phases. When we were talking about 10 years ago, it was, is cannabis going to be big? Is that a fab, or it's a big industry? Then we had an answer when we saw the revolution in the US. The second question was, okay, when, what the time? We know it's going to be big, but when is it going to happen? When Europe is going to join? Now we got the answer, and we're getting to the third phase. And the third phase is, how big would Europe be? We know it's going to be big. We know it's going to be soon. Now, who is the ones that are going to lead it? Which companies? And what are we going to see with the US companies? Are they going to enter the European market? How are they going to do it without being able to export, without being able to have IP, playing in a market that is a medical? It's going to be a very interesting year for medical cannabis.
It would certainly be interesting to see how this evolves, both for the industry and for Kanabo. Thank you so much, Avihu.
Thank you.